Good morning. Welcome to the Science of Mind class here at CSLDallas. I'm Dr. Petra, and we are having glorious fall weather here in Dallas, finally. I know there's been blizzards in New Mexico and hot in some places and cold in others, and I hope you're having a beautiful fall day wherever you are in the world. I suppose if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you're having a beautiful spring day. And we definitely have folks who watch us from the Southern Hemisphere. So, so we are finishing up this section on our relationship with the infinite and all of the ways we understand that the infinite operates. And as we have been exploring the nature of reality, the nature of the divine, the nature of the whole, the oneness, which includes not only everything tangible, but also everything intangible. We're continuing to imagine that we can understand and engage consciously with this understanding. So we're finishing up down here the law of mind in action, and I love this, the very last paragraph, by impressing our thought upon this substance, we can cause it to produce for us that which we think. Again, we want to be clear that think and impressing our thought is shorthand for consciousness, a movement in consciousness. It could be energy, it could be emotion, it could be vision, visualization, right? It could be a thought, an affirmation. So we don't want to hold that word too tightly. Science of Mind defines thought as a movement in consciousness, an inner movement, right? Which is essentially directive in some way. And we impress it upon this substance. And so often we talk about the principle, we talk about the law of cause and effect, we talk about the way that it works, this infinite principle that says for every effect there was a cause. Things don't happen out of the blue. They do actually have a cause, and our job is to either explore what the cause is or to set a new cause in motion. We set a new cause in motion with this movement in consciousness, which is both directive, but also, Science of Mind teaches, is also accepting the reality and the embodiment of the thing or the experience you want to have. But what I want to key on is the words, upon this substance. Because not only is there an infinite power principle that is the law of cause and effect, the other thing is, if everything is a oneness, if it's a wholeness and a oneness, there is nothing outside of the infinite. Therefore, so we have to ask the question, where does all this material stuff come from? Where does it come from? It's got to be part of the whole, right? And I remember being in Sunday school. I remember learning about Adam and Eve and how God had taken dust and breathed on the dust, and Adam and Eve were formed. And I was always curious as to where the dust came from. Yeah. Right? And so this is the conversation, that how does something that is an infinite unity become creation? So some spiritual traditions, particularly Eastern spiritual traditions, their answer is, well, this isn't real. This is an illusion, it's Maya, it's not a real. Science of Mind does not say that. This is a real experience. This table is really here, matter really exists, but it's not separate from the whole. So this experience that we have here, right, the way that Science of Mind expresses it is that the infinite makes everything out of itself. Right? So we have no explanation for that until we get to the quantum field. As particles are winking into and out of existence, right, the quantum field actually isn't anything. It's a series of waves, but it's not a thing. It's measurable as a wave, but it's not something, right? We're having the same problem with photons of light. Like, what are they made out of? Well, they're made out of packets of information. What?
Yeah, right.
It's actually not something that you can put on a scale. It doesn't have mass, weight, which is weight. It doesn't have extension, which is taking up space, right? But it is something. It's just not a thing. Is your brain exploding already? And so somehow the mystics and the mystery schools and all the way up through to the science of mind, right? There's this idea, I don't know how else to say it. There's this idea that on the other side of physicality, there's something out of which physicality is made, which is given the incredibly technical term of substance or soul stuff, the stuff out of which everything is made. But it isn't anything yet until it actually crosses the line into materiality. So thinking about the lovely equation from Einstein equals mc squared, of course that has to do with relativity and lots of other things, but New Thought has really co-opted that with the idea, if you think about just the equation itself, not embedding it into Einstein's whole theory, but you just think about the equation itself, energy equals matter, speeded up by the constant, which is the speed of light, squared. So 186,000, whatever it is, per second, miles per second. 186 times 186, whatever giant number that is, right? Matter is energy. Matter speeded up. And what does speeded up mean? Well, vibrational, the frequency, the wave. And so as we know that these things that are solid, they look solid to us. They're like basically 98% space, which is a mind-boggling concept in and of itself. And so why our hand doesn't go through it is sort of mind-boggling, right? Because what's in there, the 2% that's actually something physical, that's stuff, is vibrating, it's moving. And it's so another way of saying it, if we reverse the equation, energy slowed down by the constant of the speed of light squared, energy slowed down somewhere, it winks into physicality. It slowed down enough that all of a sudden we can see it and experience it. But it's not anything different. This is the thing that's so mind-boggling, right? It's so, again, I often refer to Thomas Troward. You have to read the Edinburgh Lectures if you haven't read them yet. And he does this whole thought experiment about spirit and matter and how we think of live spirit, animating spirit, love spirit, moving spirit, and dead matter. Like matter is dead, like it just is inert, as if they were two separate things. But given this wonderful equation, which whether or not it's actually true, we can use it certainly as a powerful metaphor, spirit and matter are actually on a continuum. Spirit is vibrating at this really incredibly high rate, so incredibly high rate that it is intangible to us, but no less present, no less real. And this is the transcendent mystery, the intangible reality. It's where the laws, quote unquote, reside. It's where the consciousness of life is moving, right? And as it slows down, as it vibrates at a less and less and less rate, somewhere right before physicality, it is this more, what shall we say, viscous substance, the substance that begins to have a little more ability to hold form and shape until it slows down enough, holds enough form and shape to wink into existence. It's an analogy that we can use to help this idea that what looks like matter and looks like spirit are actually not separate. And so that's how we can say the universe, the infinite, makes the physicality and creation out of itself. And what itself is this aspect of the whole that is substance, but isn't anything yet. So likened, again, I don't know if it's identical or the same thing, but certainly the scientific understanding of the quantum field becomes suspiciously close to the way in which we describe substance, which means it isn't anything yet, but it takes form, it takes shape, according to the principle, the law of cause and effect. So here's the thing that we want to think about, right? Spiritual mind treatment, our spiritual work, isn't just to shift our perspective. It isn't just to align ourselves with the spiritual truth, that we can allow the infinite to flow through us without the veils of separation and our human needs and all of the cultural things that we've learned. But to move to the next step and recognize that when we're doing spiritual work and we are co-creating, we're actually manipulating the substance. I think of it like working with Play-Doh. Really, that substance is the Play-Doh of the created universe. And as co-creators, as spirit individualizing itself, now getting to see its own ability to create. Sometimes I think we spend way too much time trying to figure out what's wrong with us, and we forget that the whole point here is for the delight of the divine. This is our sandbox, to mix metaphors terribly. Right? And so we can build sandcastles, we can knock them down, we can build roads, we can bring in our little toys, and we can make whatever we want to make, as long as we recognize the properties of the sand and we work with it in a quote-unquote lawful manner. We can't just expect that the sand will float in the air. We can turn it into something very different by adding water, make sandcastles. Remember all the dripping little sandcastles? But like icing a cake. Do you see? So this idea of substance is the connector between intangible, absolute reality and physical creation. And somehow we have to get a hold of this possibility, this idea that and begin to work with it in such a way in our consciousness and in our engagement with life that we can then work with it in our spiritual life with with the creation of the life that we are building. So on the top of page 127, of course, Jesus says, as thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee. Right? No, this is about the way the law operates on the substance. He did not say it is done unto you as you wish. It is done unto you as you believe. As we believe, whether or not we believe that we can influence the substance, that we are in fact co-creative, right? That is the belief that is then reflected back to us. So we have to find a way to start playing with this idea. And I will tell you, in 40 years of doing spiritual mind treatment, there are times when I do, in fact, understand and experience that I am rearranging the molecules of the universe. When I do work with physical healing, I do work with manifestation for people and myself, I can viscerally experience that I am rearranging the molecules of the universe, that I am, in fact, shaping substance. That's what we call a mental equivalent, the mold into which substance pours. We're the shaper of the mold. That's what that means, to shape the mold into which substance is poured, to create the mental equivalent, that belief within us that we embody the reality. of what it is that we are seeking to demonstrate and or experience. And of course, we're doing it individually and we're doing it collectively, right? And so our desire to create and our experience may or may not be impacted by what the collective is. And of course, even our own desire to co-create can be colored and shaped and influenced by unconscious thought patterns and beliefs that we have that's kind of getting mixed together. And so sometimes our demonstrations are not as clear or as full-orbed or as complete as we would like them to be, because it's not a one-to-one. We're not always clear enough for it to be a one-to-one outpicturing, right? I had this thought, therefore it manifested. It's the way that we begin to think about it, but as we mature in our spirituality, we understand that it's a much more nuanced understanding. It is the sum total of our beliefs and our expectations and our acceptance that is actually outpicturing and manifesting in our demonstrations. So I want to spend a little time talking about substance. When have you had an experience playing with it? How do you tangibly and viscerally get a hold of that? Or what do you think about this idea that as conscious beings, we actually can, in fact, manipulate that which becomes matter and creates the physical universe and our experiences? All right, so we're going to say good morning to Ryan, good morning to everybody in the room and online, and we're going to see what's going on out there.
Well, good morning to you, Dr. Petra, and good morning to everybody here. And I just got to say, everybody is looking really fabulous today. Something special must be happening here.
Ooh, I wonder. Cool weather, but also Appreciation Sunday.
All right. Well, we thank you for being in community with us no matter where you are, whether you're somewhere floating out there in the world or you're here at the campus of CSL Dallas. We want you to engage and participate. And it sounds like I have some theme music over here in the background.
We like it.
I promise it wasn't a part of the show, but now it's going to be. So there's a couple ways we can participate. The lovely Carmen over here has a microphone and she can help pass it. Please pass it to a friend once you have it. If you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll bring it over to you. I also we grew here in our section for people who don't want to be on video. Just heads up, if you would not like to be on video, come over and take a seat here with me.
We love that everybody wants to be on video.
Thanks for showing the section in the video. We said that won't be in the video, Richard.
Good enough, nobody's sitting there.
We have nobody sitting there, just FYI. Yes, and for those who are joining us on Zoom, you can go ahead and hit the raise your hand icon located down below under the More or Reactions tab. Do you see we have somebody online?
Okay, and we have a hand in the room.
And we have a hand here in the room. And those who are joining us on Facebook Live, you can always put your question in the comments, as well as those who are in Zoom too, and we could bring those into the room. So we'll start here in the room first, and then I'll come to the online guest.
My name is Carmen. I'll start. So I have the mic.
Oh, okay, great.
I actually have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so when...
You know, Richard can't show you on the video, just FYI. Oh, there you go, there you go.
So when you say when the substance and when it comes to matter, so when, from my understanding is that once it comes, we're experiencing it, it's something that's from the past, it's nothing present. So when that comes to you, and it's something that you're working on and trying to, you know, not let it to keep on. Mm-hmm. What do you do with that experience, and how do you treat that experience so that you know you don't keep on keep on recreating the same that experience?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It feels like there's two slightly different questions in
Okay.
there. So let me try to tease them apart, Carmen. The first one is, what do you do when an old pattern shows up and continues to manifest itself in form, right? And this is where we agree with the Buddhists, or we are in alignment with the Buddhists. It is what it is. What we don't say, although I hear a lot of metaphysicians say it is how it should be. No. Well, it is only how it should be because it is a outpicturing of past thoughts and beliefs. So therefore, as it should be, meaning it can be no other way, because it is revealing consciousness. But it's not as it should be because something is trying to teach us a lesson or trying to we don't have to manipulate it to say, oh, somehow it's good. No, it's just a reflection of consciousness. But it is reflecting the past. And so we get to say it is what it is. The question is, now what? Where do we go from here, right? So for me, what I like to think of it is as this is the place I'm standing on the map. I've gotten myself this far. I've gotten myself to this place or to this experience. But I know that I'm actually, if we take the metaphor of, I have a destination, which is healing a pattern. It's like having a destination. I'm going to go to New York City. Well, I have to look at the map and see where I am so I can make decisions about how am I going to get from where I am to New York City. Maybe I thought I was going to take a plane, but it was so stormy, the planes didn't work. So I got on a train or I got on a car. I got in a car and I started, right? Do you see? And then the is what it is shows us how far we've come, shows us where we're still creating patterns. It's just a mirror. It's just feedback. That's it. And if we can hold it as feedback as opposed to, I'm doing something wrong, or there's something wrong with me. No, it's just feedback. Like looking in a mirror. It's just feedback. So then the next question is, what has any of it, have I moved the needle at all? Have I moved down the track some? What do I then continue to have to work with so that the feedback will be different, right? And then that work is always in consciousness. That work is always with our thoughts, feelings, attitudes, expectations, beliefs, ways in which we show up, dealing with our patterns, right? That's the ongoing work. And cleaning up and clearing up, right? So part of it is working with those things. The other part of it is simply rewriting the synaptic patterns so that when we say, there I go again, it's just awful. No. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. I can change this. Do you see? It's that reframing, it's that shifting, it's standing in a new place with spiritual intention and then doing the disciplined work. So it's a great question. We say what I'm experiencing is what it is. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to stay that way. And there's nothing outside of us proclaiming that it needed to be that way. It is simply standing in front of the mirror, right? And to mix the metaphor completely with all the other metaphors we've been using this morning, right? We have a tendency to stand in the mirror and want to comb the hair of that which is in the mirror. Wait, that doesn't look right. Let me fix that. No. When we stand in the mirror, what do? We comb our own hair. And the mirror changes. Do you see? There's nothing, there doesn't have to be any judgment about the mirror. It just is showing us, I got to brush my hair. That's it. It is what it is. No shame, no blame, taking responsibility that it is an outpicturing of the past. I hope that helps. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, Darlene, and then we have somebody. We had somebody online. Then we're going to come back, and we have 2 more hands in the room.
Okay, so we're going online, and then we'll come back here into the room. So Marjorie, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join us.
Good morning, Marjorie.
Good morning. What a beautiful day it is here as well.
Good.
Yes. And I was just online with my son who's in Germany right now. So I feel like a very international, cosmic awareness going on here today.
I love that.
Oh my goodness. So, we're talking about existence and we're talking about substance and acceptance. And I think, for me, there's like simultaneous linear understanding of what's happening, and then the non-dual aspect of what's happening.
Always, yes.
So this substance, or this, he calls it an original state here, the thinking stuff in its original state permeates and penetrates all things. And so, it just comes down to me as like the mystery, because we can't really know what was there before the Big Bang, for example. What was there before that? Where does all this come from? So these are all questions that we will never have an answer for. But I think in terms of acceptance, and for me, I'm deeply grieving right now, as probably many of us are. Yeah. And the final stage, supposedly, of grief is acceptance. So just allowing myself to kind of go through those different initial denial and anger and all the different aspects of it. They come and go. But that acceptance is helping me to realize that just because I cannot see something in invisible form doesn't mean that it does not exist. It does exist.
Yes.
My experience with being able to communicate and feel, especially this time of the year for me, that supposed veil. To me, there is no veil between the unseen and the seen. Between those who have passed on and me here in this form, standing here right now. So, in terms of trying to accept what's happening, just allowing myself to experience the various different levels of shock and grief and denial, everything, but it's all happening all at once.
Yes. And isn't that lovely? Thank you, Marjorie. Right. And that's the deepest challenge, I think, and most profound part of our spiritual work is we actually are constantly standing in both places at the same time. That's what non-dual means, right? And
Can I something else?
Sure.
This is what is helping me to process and be able, at least in certain moments, because I have loved ones and family members close to me who voted for Donald Trump. And they are rejoicing right now. This is their moment of victory. They need to be able to celebrate their win. And if the opposite had happened, then we would be celebrating the win,
Right.
So I think, to be able to feel that simultaneous grief and joy in the same moment is very, very challenging, but it's also quite beautiful. I've been listening to Mozart's Requiem today. And the music of that is absolute pure beauty. Yeah. And yet the message of it is the Requiem.
Right.
So the beauty of life and death, it is all ecstatically, mysteriously beautiful.
I love that. Thanks, Marjorie. Thanks for sharing. Right. I love that. And it is ultimately the reality is to accept what is. The only time we grieve or find ourselves struggling with it is when we have not yet said, this is the reflection of consciousness that has come before this moment. And that's what it is. Good, bad, or indifferent. Right? And to continue to stand in that, have our human feelings around it, fully embrace that, at the same time, yes, knowing this ultimate reality is so much bigger than that. And that's why over and over and over again, for me, just for me to get a handle on the mystery, that's why I continually talk about how important it is to create metaphors or to look for metaphors that help us get a hold of it, right? Because we can, in fact, find a way to embrace it. All the arts show us that, whether it's visual arts, whether it's music, whether it's poetry, that we can, in fact, wrap ourselves around it, even if we can't wrap our linear, rational brain around it. Do not think that just because you can't rationalize it with your linear brain doesn't mean that you can't deeply experience and have a full orbed reality experience of it. And so it allows us to be much more complex people than merely I'm all this way or they're all that way, or, right? Radically inclusive means we include it all. It is what it is. And we feel our feelings, and then we make decisions and choices out of that. Thanks so much, Marjorie. Okay, Darlene.
Hi, I'm Darlene. I'm so glad you're on page 127 because it helped me to look at how in handling substance, and in this at the top of the page where it says that thou hast believed, so be it done unto you, knowing the nature of law.
Yes.
And that my thinking is that we can manipulate substance, and I know you're going to get into this, and I'm glad you're here on that, because I feel like that even though I can manipulate substance and I can wish, I cannot manipulate the law.
Correct.
I cannot manipulate the law. There is a law, and I think that my encounters with people this week has been that we have really not a real understanding of how the law works.
Right.
And the law is neutral.
Yes.
It's neutral. And yes, I embodied all kinds of emotions and feelings, but I have that to experience it all. The gift is that I can experience it all.
Yes.
And whatever I impress upon the law is what the law is going to give back to me.
Right.
And so I see no winners. I mean, if my wishes had to come true, I'd be doing the same thing, dancing in the streets. And somebody else on the other side would be grieving. And so I think that in this mental equivalent of oneness, we are all one, and in there we can find compassion.
Yeah.
Is my
Yes.
half cents.
I love that. Thank you, Darlene. Right, and so we've got, okay, we'll come to Nicole, and then we'll go down back there to Keenan. And you say something really important. It is the hardest thing to really wrap our minds around. The beginning of the next little section, the destructive use of the law. Someone may say, I cannot imagine God not caring. Right? One of the many reasons why I don't use the word God, because it's too big of a word, right? What aspect of the divine are we talking about? When we talk about the law, it's automatic and it's impersonal. The trajectory of life is always for life, for the forward movement, the evolution, and the expression of life. But the law can only manifest what's been impressed upon it. It has no ability to judge or decide if what we believe is good or bad or true or right or wrong. And it is completely impersonal, which is why I cringe when I hear people say, well, this is what should happen. This is what should have happened. No, it is simply what happened. It is an outpicturing, lawful outpicturing of the consciousness of our culture today. And it is what it is. Where are we? How? And we are completely capable of having our feelings, human feelings, and our spiritual understanding gives us a place to stand. It should rob us of despair, and it should help us handle fear. But it doesn't change the fact that we may have feelings, joyful feelings or painful feelings. These are very real and very much a part of what we experience and what we need to allow ourselves to experience. While at the same time, as Marjorie so beautifully said, this spiritual truth is in fact still true, and it's still here, and it's the ground upon which we stand. Right? And so sometimes I feel like if we're standing in both places at the same time, part of what we're doing is we're shifting back and forth. We're constantly, I think of the locus of our identity or how we're looking or what we're experiencing is sort of shifting back and forth. And, it would be great if at all times we could be fully settled, really, in the paradox that we are spirit human. Always. 100%, as long as we're embodied in this space-time continuum on planet Earth, we're spirit human. And so we have to breathe with that, right? Good. Thanks, Darlene. Okay, Nicole, and then we'll come back to Keenan.
Hello, my name is Nicole, and I am a controlaholic.
I love that you said that.
You invited the room to talk about the ways that we have used this source and have been co-creative with the substance. And I'm brought to two hobbies in my life that have been invaluable in helping me get out of that control freak state of mind. And that is tarot and painting.
Yes.
There's something about relinquishing a part of the process and to take what you're given, to take whatever card is drawn from what appears to many to be a completely random outcome, to splatter paint on the canvas and then just work with it.
Yes.
Like
yes.
This is the material. This is what I've got. Now what do I do? And it really has helped me incorporate that attitude into other parts of my life where it's like, okay, here's what life is throwing at me. Here's what the economy looks like. Here's what the political environment looks like. Here's what my job or my neighborhood or my home looks like. Life is giving me lemons. I've got some options though.
Yes, beautiful. Nicole, I love that what you said that, and it made me think immediately of, the old Bob Ross videos, and he talked about happy little accidents. Oh, there's a drip. Well, let me turn that drip into a tree. Oh, there's a splatter. Let me turn that into a little bird. Oh, right? And I remember learning that years ago and thinking, oh my gosh. And that's why for me, I don't ever ask the question, why is it this way? It is what it is. The answer to that is it's an outpicturing of consciousness. It is an outpicturing of thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that have played out from the past. My question is always, now what? Am I going to go, damn, my painting is ruined because it has this little drip in it, and I can't believe it, and I'm not very good, and I wish I knew how to paint like Nicole, and or am I going to go, what can I do with this drip? What can I do with it? How can I let it reveal itself to me? How can I play with it? That's part of the acceptance that it is what it is. And the only real question that I find useful is, now what? Oh, yeah. Now what? How am I going to hold it? How am I going to see it? Where am I going to go with it? Am I going to allow it to change me in some form or fashion? Or am I going to continue on with my deep spiritual understanding of how this all works? Yeah, that's a great... So do you see why metaphors are so important? Physical experiences, metaphors, different ways we can get a hold of it that we can then apply to our life as a whole. Beautiful. Thank you. Good morning, Keenan.
Good morning, everybody. This is Keenan. So, first off, substance. What is it? Where does it come from? Right. So, as a student of the Western Mystery Schools, I don't like the phrase, where does it come from? Because it's always been here. It's like saying, where does God come from? Right, it is. There's no time frame. It wasn't like not here and then it came here. But if you're thinking about it, it sprung forth from something, you're going to be really confused. Yes. It's always been here. Yes. And so there will always be substance. Yes. And there always has been substance. So it's a poorly framed question, in my opinion. As far as, to speak to your question, how do we practically mold substance, right? I'll go back to what I study within the mystery schools. You work on the 4 elements. You have, your fire, water, air, earth, or your spirit, intuition, intellect, and material. So you work on these. You work on these different components of reality, which we think is like the astral or the etheric plane. Like right before we
Right,
reach into
right.
the material,
Right.
we work on these elements. And so some of the work is going to be meditation. Some of the work is going to be action. But as we work with our intuitive and we work with our spiritual and our material and our intellectual, as we work within these molds of reality, this is how we take substance and form our material experience.
Yes.
That's how I work.
I love it. I think that's a great way of exploring it and explaining it. And it is one of the most challenging things, especially in the Western traditions, is, we're taught God is the Alpha and the Omega, right? Which implies beginning and end. And we have the stories in the beginning, right? And then we have, from science, as Marjorie said, the Big Bang, as if something started and there wasn't anything before that. And it is a very worthwhile contemplation in meditation to recognize that creation is always starting. In the beginning is happening every moment. There is no moment in time, in physical time, in which anything started. It wasn't like God showed up somehow, because then we have to ask, like, from where? How did that work, right? We have the problem of infinite regress at that point. Well, somebody created it. Well, that's a bigger God. Well, what created that? Well, that's an even bigger God, or more, primal God, or whatever. It just makes your head spin. And the same thing is true about substance, about law, and about expression, physical form, whether it's physical form in this space-time continuum, whether it's physical form on this planet or in all the multiverses that can be possibly imagined or extrapolated. But this is where our brain goes on tilt to actually contemplate this eternal, infinite nature. And so, yes, right? Meditation, intuition. That's why in the meditation experience, when we begin to pop out of the confines of the space-time continuum, we get a glimpse, we get a sense, we get an intuition, we get a feel for this idea that none of these things started, which also means none of them will end. There is no alpha and omega except in this moment. This moment is the beginning of the next moment, and it is the end of the last moment. That's forever and always true. And so even that's why even the word substance is a little bit challenging, because it does imply it's a thing, and where do things come from, right? And so to continually stretch our imagination. And so sometimes when it's really hard for us to hold, and we find that, like, I don't really get it, right? A friend of mine used to say, well, I just pretend that it's true. And then play with it, right? Just pretend that it's true, and then start to play with it. Push the boundaries of what I can imagine, how I might describe it, how we might, get a hold of it, so that we can have, and what I think of embodiment is a felt, lived experience of it. Not just an intellectual, I can talk about it. Although that's a great place to start, but it's not going to get get us to the embodiment of it. And this is why this idea of substance is so powerful. It is always and forever available. Just like the law. You don't turn the law on because you've decided to do an affirmation or a spiritual mind treatment. Right? The law is always present. It's always operating. When we do affirmation or spiritual mind treatment, we do this work. We are consciously using it as opposed to simply having it run on our automatic habits and patterns. That's all we're doing, is bringing the nature of reality into consciousness. We're not creating the nature of reality. We're simply bringing it into consciousness, bringing it into awareness, so that we can be more co-creative, more conscious about what our now what is our answer to now what? Where are we going to go from here? So I'm going to ask you to hold your question, Ross, till next week, or your comment, if you can. Pardon me, you won't be here. Oh no. Okay, is it really, really, really short?
This class is just too short this
Yeah. I know, the class is always too short, right? It's juicy stuff. Talk about it with your friends. I mean, really talk about it, not just platitudes, not just, spiritual, oh, I read this in a book. It's a great place to start, but then ask, what does it mean? What does it really, really mean? And notice that I'm doing this. What does it mean? Not just what does it mean, although there's nothing wrong. It's, right, the whole kit and caboodle. We want to work with ourselves, with our whole consciousness. What is our felt lived experience of it? What meaning do we make? And of course, as Marjorie also said, we're not going to grok it all. So there's always going to be this mystery that is continually inviting us into a larger reality, which is part of the fun, right? It's part of the fun. And we're not going to control it all. Thank you for that controlaholic, Nicole. I love that, right? So it's all good. So Ryan, tell us, do we have anything to talk about?
Yes. What does it mean to be a bean? As we were going into
right?
it. So another way that you can extend this fun that we're having here is to get into classes and courses here at CSL Dallas. And Dr. Petra has an amazing one that's coming up on November 17th. Which is all about conflict and communication.
Yes, it's especially useful with what's going on in our world today. So, yeah.
Yeah, and another mention real quick, too, is that for those who love Wednesday night meditation, it is back now. So join us here at the CSL Dallas campus every Wednesday night starting at 7 for a guided meditation and then a juicy conversation about metaphysics. So that's another great place to have an open conversation about this stuff as well, too.
And if Sunday morning class isn't enough for you to talk about it, Sunday night gathering is a great place to bring your thoughts and questions, too.
Yeah, you read my mind. I just happened to put a link inside of the chat as well. And we have our practitioners who are available after our Sunday celebration here on campus and on the Zoom. So if you... for the evening one, it starts at 7 Central Standard Time. It's on Zoom. If you go to the website, the link's on there.
No,
it's only
on Zoom.
virtual. Yeah,
just on Zoom for everybody who's all over the world and people right here in DFW.
But if you are here in DFW, we encourage you to come to Wednesday night too, because it's kind of another area where we can have these kinds of conversations. But it's a good
stuff.
place. Yeah. And as always, we have Thanksgiving coming up.
Yes.
So make sure you sign up, get yourself a spot to bring a potluck dish, and join us on Thanksgiving for a wonderful celebration brought to you by Faye, who's going to be speaking. So it's going to be great.
And Carmen, Faye, and Ty are handling the potluck. It'll be really wonderful. Join us for all these things and all through the holidays. We really look forward to seeing you in person, on campus, or online. So bye for now.